Hmm. Good morning. Welcome to Spirit Storytime. Thanks for joining me. I hope to sit with you each Tuesday. Spirit will choose a book each week and then pick a passage. It may be a paragraph, read Spirit's choice of the week with you. Know that I do not read the passage ahead of time, so any mistakes and or mispronunciations just may happen. Also, be aware that my dogs may interrupt us if they have something to say. Donations are not necessary, but gratefully accepted, and they can be made through PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. So, thank you for your generosity and settle back as we begin this week's choice. Today, they have chosen Quantum Healing by Deepak Chopra. And the section they had me mark is in chapter 10 on page 163. In the Rishi's world. A boy in India never has to wish for a time machine. When I was 7, a 2-minute walk took me from Daddy's army hospital to the Pune Grand Bazaar. There, the old smells hung in the air: saffron, dust, sandalwood, and cooking fires. Not that I noticed them then, being glued to the snake charmers. In the hospital, the only smell was of Dettol, an all-purpose cleanser that stung your nose like straight formaldehyde. It's itself going backwards. We adjusted to out and make an offering to Shiva. My father understood that. Now when I go back tarmac, in the cities it's not uncommon for businessmen dressed in impeccable copies of English wool suits to step around the bodies of sadhus or holy men who sit calmly in the middle of sidewalks, clothed in loincloths with orange robes. The daily scene is like an archaeological dig whose layers are hopelessly mixed up, or better yet, where the layers have jumped out of the ground and come to life. Every dig has to have a bottom layer, though. In this case, it is the sadhus. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, so it means India's holy men. India's holy men date from at least 3,000 years before the birth of Christ. Their words have been recorded and passed on in the original Sanskrit, which lays good claim to being man's first language. Their traditional home is still the Himalayas, where they go to sit in some samadhi or deep meditation for days or weeks at a time. For them, life is totally dedicated to inner silence. Very occasionally, the thought might enter their heads that they should go on a pilgrimage. Picking up their begging bowls, in modern times, they can usually board any train or bus without a ticket. As a child, what I knew of sadhus came from one of my uncles, my father's oldest brother. He traveled all over the country selling sports equipment. We called him Bara Uncle or Big Uncle, a name that set him apart from our lesser relations. He inevitably arrived at our door with field hockey sticks. India traditionally used to beat the rest of the world in this minor sport. Soccer balls or badminton shuttles as presents. And naturally, we couldn't wait to see him. Bara Uncle was hugely affable and gregarious. He spun fabulous tales about the wonders he met on his way. The most vivid happening in Calcutta. Bara Uncle was pushing his way through the crowds when he almost stumbled over an old sadhu sitting near the curb. Absent-mindedly, my uncle reached into his pocket, found 2 annas, about 2 cents, and put them in the sadhu's bowl. The sadhu shot him a glance and said, "Make a wish for anything you want." Taken aback, my uncle blurted. Very calmly, the sadhu reached his right hand into the air, materialized 2 pieces of fresh burfi, and gave them to Bara Uncle. Astounded, he stood transfixed for a few seconds, just enough time for the sadhu to rise and melt like a shadow in a burfi from some sweetmeat vendor on the street. But every time he told the story, my uncle would shake his head and mourn, "I'm still thinking of all the things I could have wished for." As a boy, I firmly believed Bara Uncle's story, but in a contemporary India, people are more likely to see a sadhu and skeptically wonder if he's real. Starting in the 1920s, scientists from Europe and America began to visit India to observe the various swamis, yogis, and sadhus of every description. Some had attained remarkable degrees of control over their bodies. They could apparently stop breathing for minutes at a time and bring their heartbeats down to almost zero. A typical procedure would consist of taking one of those saints, as holy men are commonly called in India, and burying him in a box 6 feet underground. This was supposedly a scientific experiment, but of a very crude sort. After a few days, when the box was unearthed, you either had a result or you didn't. The desired result would be that the saint was still alive. Almost all the psychological studies from the early days are very shallow in their approach, and many reflect this weird combination of science and sideshow. A sadhu's control over his body, however, is still physical and misses the point of his existence. Such people are out to break through the mask of physical appearances. In our terms, they want to leave the world above the line, quote unquote, to find out what lies beneath. Indian life, in fact, has traditionally been arranged to make this quest possible. After a man has been educated, raised a family, and enjoyed the rewards of material existence, he is expected to take sannyasa. That is, he renounces the householder life, takes up the begging bowl, and goes off in search of something else. If you say that he is searching for God, for truth, for reality, or for himself, all of these would not be quite right, because the essence of the quest is that the goal is unknown. He is setting off into another world that cannot be tracked from this one. To use our terms again, he is setting out across the gap. And step around saints on the sidewalk. But as I look deeper into the issues of mind-body medicine, I kept returning to India's ancient traditions. The second part of this book centers on what I have found. The known world of our senses, of atoms and molecules, does not just break off abruptly. It shades imperceptibly into a different reality. At some point, however, one reality flips into another. Time and space acquire a different meaning. The next divisions between inner and outer reality disappear. We find ourselves in a world that has never been explored as well as in India. In its purest form, the sadhu is an investigator into the transcendental reality lying beyond the gap that on our planet. To understand his findings will take us on a new road away from physics, but still on much the same track in search of ourselves. In the West, before the advent of the theory of relativity, there was no question that time, space, matter, and energy occupied separate compartments of reality. Our senses detect a tree as entirely different than a beam of light or a spark of electricity. We may feel that time is a more mysterious entity, capable of slowing down, speeding up, or even standing still, but we would never say, I like New York better than Monday, for the simple reason that none can be turned into the others. The normal world of the senses can be diagrammed in our familiar manner: time, space, matter, energy. After Einstein published the equation E equals mc squared, this simple, common sense view had to change, for it was now possible, as the atom bomb proved, for matter to be transformed into huge amounts of energy. The general theory of relativity did the same thing for the separation between time and space. Now, physics deals in fused entity called space-time, which can be bent to fit certain circumstances, whenever an object travels near the speed of light, for example. After proving that nature was much less compartmentalized than science had previously thought, relativity, open field, exists as a background for all transformations of space-time and mass energy. This implies a level of nature that is totally fused. In other words, there is a region of space, time, matter, energy. And Spirit wants me to stop there. Also, to give you a spelling of the word, the Holy Ones, because I'm really not sure that I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I don't want to not do it justice. So let me find that. Oh, of course, now I can't find it. Okay, here we go. Oh, Sadhu, Sadhu. So feel free to look that up. Look up the correct pronunciation of that, so that you might enjoy that a little better. And this again was from Quantum Healing, Exploring the Frontiers of Mind-Body Medicine from Deepak Chopra. So thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you next week to see what Spirit has for us.